Hello, welcome to Truth Speak. Today I want to start with the story of Marty Shroud. He was a prosecutor in the case of a man named Glenn Ford. Glenn Ford was just released from death row as an innocent man. Marty did something which I really applaud and I respect. He wrote a letter, an open letter, of apology to Mr. Glenn Ford and to his family for not taking due diligence at that time because he was more interested in winning since he was a new prosecutor than he was in making sure that the man got a fair trial. And I want to use that story as a particular example of something that I'm really going to hit on today, which is feedback loops. And I think that this is part of the reason why I'm approaching selfishness and being aware of your decisions. Every decision that you make has an effect on subsequent decisions that you want to make. And if you're not paying attention in examples of like a feedback loop, it becomes a self-propagating load that by the time it really comes time for you to make a decision that's a clear choice, it's extremely difficult because of now the crushing weight of inaction that you had previously. And so I want to address where those things begin today and just kind of talk about a bunch of subjects and just go into it. So there's a few different feedback loops that I want to address, and keep these in mind from the view of 6 degrees of separation, in the sense that it's a small world, and if you're not paying attention, the negative consequences of your choices that you don't realize could be having a serious effect on those people around you. And all right, here's one. There's the income feedback cycle, or the debt. I guess you could call it the debt cycle. And what typically happens is you have people who are barely getting by, maybe they can get a credit card, or they are at a certain standard of income and they're living beyond that. And so what most people will tend to do, if you're industrious, you're going to raise your level of income, get a new job, get a second job, get a promotion, do something of the sort, so that your income now exceeds that which you actually need. Once you get to that point, I strongly suggest that you begin to save money and remain at that level for as long as you possibly can. Most people don't do that. Most people raise their standard of living to not only match that income, but to exceed it yet again. And so the process continues, in which you're going to ever need to make more money to pay for more debt, to make more money to pay for more debt, and if it's not debt, to pay for more things, to pay for more wants and desires which exceed your current standard of living, because our society is built on that particular kind of thing. So breaking the cycle, you need to change the things that you want, the things that you desire, and learn to be content. It's one thing. And the side effect of that, the problem with that, is that as you continually have to work more and more to begin to pay for the things that you want and the standard of living that you've created for yourself, you have less time to do anything for the people around you. You have less time to focus on the people around you. You have less time maybe to focus on your children. You and your wife now have to go work to keep up a certain standard of living, so your children are getting raised in a daycare, or they're getting raised by school, by their friends, rather than by you. And that's just something to look at. Am I saying that you are a bad parent or anything like that? No, not necessarily, but I'm saying that now this income cycle, this feedback loop has affected your time, in which you can spend time focusing on raising your children or being involved in their life or recognizing the problems that they may have before it becomes too late. And for your child, if they're not really seeing you, then they lean on whoever's around, and be it their caregiver, daycare, or their friends who become really close to them, and they have a lot of influence on them. And if you're not there to mitigate that influence, anything can begin to happen. Or if these kids if you're well off and your kids are entitled, they have a laissez-faire attitude about life and perceive anybody that's not at their level to maybe be incompetent of some level or some sort. And if you preach that to them, if you tell that to your kids, well, they go and pass that on, that attitude, they exacerbate it onto other children who may not be as fortunate. And why does these things matter? Well, if you look at the stories of these kids who get fed up and get a gun and go to school, I think that we can stop that process. I don't think that, I'm not saying they will be eradicated tomorrow. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you and your wife are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and you can barely see your kids for a couple of hours during the day, during the week, are you really as involved in your kids' life as you possibly could be? Can you redesign, maybe obviously not today, but within a couple years, to redesign your life so that you can be more involved, so that you can mitigate against the influence that they're having on other kids and they are receiving from other kids? I don't have time for that, or it's not my problem, or it's none of my business. Those statements I think encapsulate different feedback loops that only serve to harm the situation. If you don't have time to really be involved in every aspect of your kid's life, how can you be sure that they're becoming the best that they can be? That you're really passing on the best of your qualities to them? Obviously, I'm not saying domineering and controlling, because then the kid just wants to escape from you, but taking time to research how to have a conversation with them about something and show them why it's beneficial for them not to do a certain thing or to do a certain thing. At any rate, we all know that bullying is a problem. And if you say it's not my problem, or it has nothing to do with me, when you see another parent being a certain kind of way with their kids, I think that's the beginning of the issue. It's going to be a hard conversation, but I think that you should try to endeavor to find ways to have that conversation, to spend time with that family or something to help show them, hey, maybe if you do it this way, this could work out better, not only for you, but also for your child. Either here nor there, but that's one aspect. The I got away with it cycle. So there is a friend of mine, he drinks, and he'll drink quite a bit, and then he'll drive. And one of the things that I always get on his case about is that, you're doing it today and you're getting away with it today. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get away with it tomorrow. Because what continues to happen is you continue to get more comfortable. It's kind of like the asymptote that I've been talking about. Basically, you're going along the curve and you're getting ever and ever closer to the DUI. You're just approaching it, because that's the inevitable result if you continue to leave bars drinking and driving. That's just what's going to happen. And I don't think that most people get pulled over their first couple of times because you're freaked out. You're worried about how drunk you are and things like that, so you're extra careful. Or your drug use, or the first time you went on a drug run and you had stuff in your car, you made the trip, you survived, you got away with it, and now you feel a little extra, well, I've already done it before, so maybe I'll get away with it this time too, and I'll get away with it this time too. So you've done it 1,000 times and it doesn't even begin to cross your mind. That's when it's really, really dangerous. It hasn't even crossed your mind the danger that you're not only putting to yourself, but the people around you. Let's see. Profiling. We all know that profiling is a problem. they shouldn't do it, and I know this, and so I'm going to say, the next thing I'm going to say is going to be at the risk of sounding insensitive to that, but I want you to know that I am fully aware of it, and I have personally experienced it myself. But there is something important to know. We are all guilty of confirmation bias, and we are all looking for things to confirm our opinions and our thought process. That's why I try to steer away from opinionative statements and go to truth. Because if we work together, we're going to find the truth. Or if you think about it long enough and you're presented with enough facts, the truth is there. You just have to be willing to accept it. And so, with profiling, there's a problem. So, drug use is highly associated with poverty because of the stress of life. And if you're using drugs as a means to escape the stress, well, most people don't understand that part of your stress is financial, and so the money that you're spending on drugs and alcohol and things like that is not going towards building a better future for yourself. So now you're compounding your financial feedback loop in a negative direction, and you're compounding your stress loop in another direction. So you're compounding the problem for yourself on one front, and then the I got away with it once aspect, where you've done it a few times, you've done the drugs a few times, you've never gotten caught. So all of those feedback loops are working in together. Now, bring that into the situation of profiling, which we know that a bunch of officers do. And there's a few that don't, God bless them. But we all know, I'm not getting into the politics of that there. What I am getting it back into is the feedback loop that's created by this situation. And so the officer, through media, through whatever reason, has looked at a certain demographic, and this is what's he expects to be going on, or these are the warning signs for what he expects to be going on. You as an individual in the community know that they are particularly after you or your friends or things like that. So would you then go and have any kind of paraphernalia or any kind of drugs in your car? The answer should be no. You should never. You should never at all, because you are under watch. Whether you should be or should not be, I agree that there is harassment, and I agree that there is problems. But you are compounding the problem for yourself if you then choose to partake in the face of that. Because now here's what happens for the officer. Every time that, or 90% of the time that he pulls over a certain individual, if he finds something that continually reaffirms his opinion that these are the signs that he should be looking for that indicate that something is going on. So if you make your car look like a drug runner car, and you keep getting pulled over, and then you decide to actually have drugs in the car, you're causing yourself misery. And this becomes a misery cycle. You see, because all of those other feedback loops, your financial gets affected when you get arrested, your stress gets affected when you get arrested, and your I got away with it gets affected. Now, your I got away with it is going to get affected in the reverse, obviously, because you got caught. And it is now compounded the effects of your stress and your financials. But because of the added stress of this, and because of the added financial strain of this, if you've been using drugs as an escape route or an escape hatch, now when you now have a compounded issue of being in jail or getting out of jail or a felony or whatever, and it's hard to find a job, it's hard to do other things, you're going to go back to what's comfortable. You're going to go back to that thing that you use to escape because it's the routine that you've built for yourself. And the feedback loop continues. I hope I'm making sense here, but what I'm trying to say is that all of these things are connected. And that's why I mentioned the 6 degrees of separation earlier and things like that. It's a small world, and everything that you do, every decision that you make is affecting other people, and it's just loops. And that's the cycles that I've been I've been focused on lately. If you have a bad attitude and you go to work and you rub your coworkers the wrong way, they're probably going to treat you poorly, and you're going to have a worse attitude, and you're going to come in the next day, and it's going to compound, and it's going to continue until you quit, get fired, or whatever. Instead of realizing that, let me just have a good attitude, even though I don't want to be here or I don't want to be in this situation, if I have a good attitude about it, when the opportunity comes for me to get out, or these people who didn't notice how bad my situation was, but they always see me in a good attitude, it may open the door for something else in the future. So beware of feedback loops. They are destructive. And I just wanted to try to name a few today, and I'm sorry if any of this got confusing, but beware of feedback loops. And you can fix them by paying attention to your routine. You can fix them by, okay, this leads to this. Let me try to interrupt that part. Let me try to interrupt this part. Let me try to change my routine here. And it's kind of like what I talked about in a couple episodes back about building a bridge over your emotions. You know, if you get caught up in your emotions and you compound the problem for yourself, you know, the more that you let the feedback loop continue, it becomes this crushing weight to where you've now, that financial loop and that stress loop. I mean, if on the financial side you didn't have money to get a good lawyer and it compounded effects on your life, you know, things like that, all of those things why did you run out of money? Well, you've been doing this for 10, 15 years now, and things like that. All of those things should come rushing into your mind. If you have any questions, please ask me. And I'm sorry if this one ran a bit long, but I wanted to get this off my chest. Some things that you can look at, just some media to pay attention to the kind of things I'm talking about, is watch Vice. Vice on HBO is actually really, really great. I don't have any complaints right now, more than sometimes I feel they're just so focused on being a part of it and spreading it, rather than even beginning to provide a solution for it. Because some of these things have a clear solution, and I think that they could at least spark the process. But I mean, that's just me. But watch Vice. Tobacco Land is something to take a look at. There is the immigration aspect, where, you know, it has nothing to do with me, it's not a problem, or it's all their fault, they're always the one taking my jobs, they're the one doing this, they're the one doing that, deport them all. Well, you deport them over there and that country's not equipped to handle it, so they just find their way back up here. Or you deport a bunch of criminals over there that you know that country has no capability of dealing with these criminals, so now they are narco state and they're run by gangs and corrupt officials. Or you enhance that corruption by your consumption of drugs and your consumption of guns or whatever illegal exports that these folks are doing. All of these cycles, all of these things compound the effects on the other. You know, if you are mad at immigrants and you use or sell a lot of drugs, you're a walking contradiction. That's just an example of the feedback loops that I'm trying to reach out to today. At any rate,